You shall what? Ask and you shall. And I don't care who it is, if you ask with authority and certainty, you get an answer. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine came to see me one time, years ago. He was at his wit's end. He was a lawyer, and he had been in partnership with another lawyer, a friend of his, for, 12, 14, 15 years. Let's say 15 years rounded up. And one day, the partner of his had a midlife crisis and decided he didn't want the pressure of being a partner in the firm, and he quit the firm. He just announced to his 15-year partner, I'm out. I'm moving out, I'm moving away, I'm getting a divorce, I don't want to be a lawyer anymore. I'm out, I'm leaving the firm. And now he's got reputation, money, overhead, all the stuff tied to him. So he comes to me, he says, Tony, I can't handle this. I can't take on his cases, it's gonna hurt our reputation. I don't have anybody else I can bring in here. We're both still in the building phase in this firm. Without him, also with sweat equity in this thing, just go hire somebody, can't work. And he is on and on and on and on, and he's pissed off and he's frustrated, and underneath it all, he's scared, really scared. He doesn't know how he can keep the thing together. He can't keep the overhead, and so I let him talk on and on. So I look at him and I say, I just have to ask you a question that you're gonna think I look like an idiot, and you're gonna say, stop being Tony Robbins, but I can't, it's me. So I have to ask you the Tony Robbins question. He said, what's that? I said, what's great about this? And I said, I know on the surface, it's the most absurd question to ask, that's why it's the best question to ask. The best question is often the one everybody else thinks is absurd. Because what everybody else thinks like is why everybody else is stuck, right? You ask the question nobody else would ask. And one of the greatest questions to ask is what's great about this, but make yourself come up with the answer. If you can't come up with it, change your state and ask it. So I changed the state by saying pussy boy and finally getting him to laugh. First getting a little pissed off. I don't mind getting somebody pissed off because when they're angry, energy goes through their body. I can take anger and convert it into something else that's different than defeated. Does that make sense? So I get him angry and then a little playful, and finally he goes, well, I said, look me in the eye and tell me you loved your partner and wanted to be with him forever. Tell me you wanted to have sex with him. Come on, tell me. So what am I doing? Breaking his what? So once I break his pattern enough, he goes, honestly, he said he's been a pain in the ass for the last 8 years. I said, what's great about this? He said, what's great about this is it makes me no longer settle for the wrong partner. And when he got that, it changed the meaning and it changed the game instantly just by answering this question. How many follow this? Say aye. What I've been endeavoring to do, and what Chet and all of us have been endeavoring to do this week, is give you the answer to the question of what's great about this economy. How many starting to get what's great about it now? Say aye. Because now you have the ultimate advantage when you look forward to recession. When you look forward to it, now that's not being harsh, when you're just like, yeah, give me the recession, baby, give it to me. When you can do that, it's not some fake positive thinking, rah-rah BS, but it's based on intelligence that says there's no greater opportunity than now for me to be able to build my business where the costs are lower and the opportunity is greater. There's never been a time, if I can just keep my wits about me, be strong, be intelligent, keep focused, apply some of these disciplines. How many agree? Say aye. So we've been trying to answer that question for you without saying it to you. Because once you get that answer, the game changes. So sure enough, I ask him, okay, what's great about this? And he starts, what else is great about it? I don't let him tell me one thing, because what makes things stick is stacking. One after another after another. What else is great about this? He goes, well, I don't have to settle for the wrong partner anymore. He said, also, I can't really afford this location, and I don't really like where our office is. Where we are is 1,000,000 miles away from my house. So now I would have been stuck here because he lives near here and I'd never want to push him. I'd be stuck here for the next 5, 10 years, driving with worse and worse traffic. You know what? I could get my office, I have to finish the lease, but I could then move to the beach. I got an office looking over the ocean. I love the ocean. Now, by the way, what do you think's happening to his state? Okay, I'm not stuck with that bastard anymore. I used to be upset with leaving. And I'm not stuck in this location. I go, wow, okay, what else? What else? He said, well, I don't know. What else is great is it's gonna make me grow. It's gonna make me get out of my box. It's gonna make me, and when I get enough of these things to state change, I go to the next question. I said, okay, what can you learn from this? He said, I can learn to never settle again because I knew in the beginning he was wrong. Good lesson. What else can you learn from this? That I've avoided confrontation and given up a great amount of the juice and freedom of my life, and I won't do that anymore. Wow. By the way, is this now really a gift of an experience, yes or no? We're getting into some real deep stuff, just asking a couple questions. So what's great about this? Would I learn this? I said, okay, here's a great question. What's not perfect yet? What does that presuppose, my friends, when I say what's not perfect yet? That it's going to be what? Perfect. That's different than if you go, well, how will I survive? That presupposes you may not. What's not perfect yet? He goes, well, what's wrong is, I said, no, I didn't ask what's wrong. I asked what's not perfect yet. Language creates emotion. So you gotta use the right words here. What's not perfect yet? He goes, well, what's not perfect yet is I don't have enough money to cover the monthly overhead without a partner. I said, okay, what else is not perfect yet? What's not perfect yet is I'm not clear about how I could cover his accounts. What else is not perfect yet? We're not doing this in our head, we're writing it down. In your head, you'll go in a circle. Write it down, it has a whole different game, doesn't it? It keeps us from going in a circle. It's right in front of you, you can deal with it. So guess what? We come up with what's not perfect yet. As we're looking at what's not perfect yet, I said, okay, now here's the question. What are you willing to do to make it the way you want it? What are you willing to do to make it the way you want it? He said, what do you mean, what am I willing to do? I'm asking you point blank. See, people that are willing to do anything at all to make it the way they want it, they'll find a way. If all of you in this room think about your business and you think about what you want your business to become, or you think about your life and you think about what you want your life to be like, you think about what it is you say you want, what are you willing to do to make that happen, to get that funding? You tell me. Anything? Because if you can make a list of all things you never would want to have to do to raise that money, and you can look at yourself in the eye and go, I'm willing to do all of these things as much as I hate them, and your gut can do that, I'll tell you what will happen. You'll raise the money, and you won't have to do probably 90% of that, but you might have to do 10% of it. But most of you don't ever look at it. You don't realize there's something inside of you you're not willing to do, and you're afraid you might have to, and so you don't do everything that's necessary to raise that money. You go to the 90%, and then you go, gosh, it's just, I'm not there yet. I know I'm going to get there. You got to get to that point where what are you willing to do? Because if you're not willing, you might say, well, here's what I'm willing to do. I'm willing to, he says to me, I'm willing to take this on and stop. I'm willing to take this on. I think the first thing he said is, I'm willing to take this on and find a way to either grow the firm or shrink it and keep it above the line. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to keep the firm above the line. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it not go broke. I said, well, what else are you willing to do? Well, I'm willing to make it profitable. I'm willing to work extra hours. I'm willing to, if necessary for the next 6 months, double cover cases. I'm willing to call in favors. I'm willing, and we write it all down. How many are following this process? Then there's another question you got to ask yourself that's also very, very, very important, and that is, what am I willing to not do? In other words, I'm willing to do this to make it work. What am I willing not to do to make this the way I want it? What am I willing to do, but then what am I willing not to do to make this the way I want it? And I use this confusing language on purpose to break his what? You're willing to do this, what are you not willing to do? How many follow this? I'm not willing to whine. I'm not willing to become a defeated man over this, right? I'm not willing to be in a position where I live in fear and stress every day. I don't have to. I can just decide how I want to make it work, and I'm going to make it that way. I'm not willing to make him my excuse for being frustrated every day. That starts to solve the real problem, doesn't it? And then finally, how can I enjoy the process? How can I solve this? How can I create this, but also enjoy it? That was like me going outside in the jacuzzi. How can I enjoy the process? And he said, I could make my son my partner. I said, what? He said, my son is graduating from school, and honestly, there was no space for him here. We couldn't afford to bring him on, but I'm thinking, that's so stupid. I could mentor him, we could be sharing together, he could be in the firm here. If this place was at the beach, he'd want to be there for sure. So would I. And he came up with this whole vision. And in 5 or 6 questions, he went from depressed, overwhelmed, no future, to the life of his dreams is now being created because of this gift that just happened in his life. That's the power of questions. We were at lunch for an hour. But the minute he got that this was great, what was great about this, the job was 80% done. How many follow us? The minute you go from problem to question, you start to find the solution. Because answers only come from new questions. Now, I did change his what? Well, I asked the question, change his what? And that's what you got to do as well. That's why I said you got to know what does it that influences people. It's the state they're in, and it's their blueprint. The state is the mental, emotional state they're in, which you can change by changing their physiology or their focus. The blueprint is that they're trying to meet these needs. And they have a map. His map was, I'm supposed to have a partner, we're supposed to do this, and supposed to do that, and then that gets me where I want to be. My new truth was, he wants love, he wants significance, he wants certainty, he wants variety, he wants growth, and he wants contribution. I'm going to get him to see that this meets all those needs. But if I tell him that, he'll doubt it. But if I ask him these questions, he'll find it, he'll tell me, and it'll be true. How many follow the difference here? Okay? By the way, who would these questions be really good to ask of? And by the way, can you feel the room right now? What are you feeling right now? How many of you are like in your head really thinking right now, but let me see your hands, really, you feel the energy of the room is very different, like people inside going like, what is this thing, Could it really be that easy? 6 freaking questions? But I'll tell you a secret, you must ask these from a great state, and you must make yourself come up with many answers, and you must write them down. A, you must ask them from a great state. So if you're not in a great state, change it. How do you do that? Radical change in your body, or your focus, or both. 2, you got to ask them from a place of certainty. 3, give multiple answers. Lots of reasons why this is great. Lots of what you've learned from this. Lots of what you're willing to do. Lots of what you're not willing to do anymore in order to have this work. Right? All those pieces. Lots of what you're willing to do to not only get the job done, but enjoy the process. Because if you stack it, you'll own it. Does that make sense? So you can do this with yourself, you can do this with anyone else. This is an ultimate discipline. What will get you in a good state in the morning is if you ask a few good questions. So let me try this for you. Talk to you about what do leaders do? They change organizations by solving problems and maximizing resources. How do they do that? Influence. How do they influence? First, you got to influence whom? Before you influence anybody else. To touch someone else, you must be touched. To move somebody else, you must be moved. How do you do that? Start by feeding your mind from now on. Feed it something strong, something alive. Consistently have a ritual that feeds your mind. Because if you let what's going on now buzzing in your pocket, on your computer screen, flashing on the television, we both know, all of us know, it's not going to empower you for the most part. That's not to say you shouldn't pay attention. You just can't make that the primary dietary input of your life, emotionally, psychologically, and financially. Do you agree with me on this? Yes or no? Yes. So find biographies, history, principles, solutions. Spend 95% of your time there. 5% keeps you updated on what other people are experiencing out there. Okay? 2, condition your body. The body affects the mind. 3, ask quality questions. I've given you a whole series here that you can ask to solve any problem. Remember, I don't have a problem. I only have a problem because I haven't found and formed the right question and demanded from myself the right answers or sought the answers. Whenever somebody comes to me and says, I got a problem with what you said, I'll say, that means you have a question about what I said. What's your question? See, as long as it's formed as a problem, there's no way to solve it. You can't solve a problem that somebody else owns, but you can answer a question. We could answer a question together, couldn't we? That's how you solve things. Form it as a question. Then I've given you 6 questions you can ask, and you can just get in the habit of these. Get them in your body, put them on a card, put them in your book, put them wherever it is you carry with you, your computer, your phone, and to glance at them after a while. Just, okay, time to solve the problem. Look down, ask the question, ask the question, ask the question. Ideally, though, write down the answers. It'll be more powerful if you write it down by 5-fold. If for some reason you can't write it down, at least do it mentally. But demand the answer in a strong state and stack it. Now, you can also get other people to do it by creating a memo system or something like that. You can also do it by having a new discipline. In the company, there are no problems, there's just questions. So what's the question we've got to answer? Let's form the question effectively. Let's all work on the answer together. Now, another question you might have, you might ask yourself, well, how do you change somebody's state? Just ask the right question. If you ask some people, how's it going? Wrong question. Yeah, how's business for you? Is that a good question to ask most people right now? No. But if I were to ask you right now, all of you in this room, honestly and sincerely, tell me something. If you were to be honest about this, and you weren't, feigning that, you didn't want to look like you're being immodest, you're just being truthful. I bet there's some aspect of your life, something in your life, many things that you've done in your life over the course of your life that you're proud of. or that you could be proud of if you just let yourself and didn't think it was improper to be proud? What's something in your life you're really proud of? Really proud of, that if you were to really stop and focus on it and take the time to appreciate it, make you feel damn proud. Proud of who you are, proud of someone in your life that you've touched or influenced, proud of something you've accomplished. That if you were to forget everything else and just really focus on this, you could feel damn proud right now. How many can think of something you could be really proud of? Let me see your hands. Say I. What about that are you proud of? What's it about that makes you feel proud? How does it feel when you're really proud? How do you feel right now when you're proud? Tell me something. If you really wanted to, what could you be excited about in your life right now? If you wanted to be excited, now I know you don't have to be, but if you really wanted to be excited sincerely and you want to be excited about your life and you were just to focus on this, it would excite you. You'd be so excited about this aspect of your life or this thing in your life. I mean, honestly, you could get worked up real quick. You start to think about it. What could you really be excited about in your life right now? How many can think of something you'd be excited about? Raise your hand, say I. What about that excites you? Just say it out loud. What about that excites you? What else about that excites you? How does it feel when you're excited? How many feel different right now than just a few moments ago? What are you grateful for? If you wanted to be grateful right now, what could you feel grateful for? If you were really grateful, like you felt like you really reconnected to how lucky you are, that most of what you have in your life that you've worked your tail off for, truthfully, you could have worked just as hard growing up in Somalia and you'd have nothing. You might even be dead or damaged by a mine you stepped on. When you really realize the ultimate gift of even where you were born and who you were born around, or the environment, or even the time in history in which you were born. The moment we are in our life right now, or somebody in your life you're so grateful for. I mean, real gratitude, like almost overwhelming gratitude. To realize that your life has truly been blessed, even though you've forgotten it at times. What could you feel blessed by? What could you feel grateful for? How many can think of something you're really grateful for, or someone you're really grateful for? How do you breathe when you're grateful? What's the look on your face when you're really grateful? What about that makes you feel so grateful? What about that makes you feel so grateful? How does it feel when you're grateful? Make a sound, whatever sound that would be of gratitude. Make the sound of gratitude, just instinctively go. Who do you love? Who loves you? Who do you really love? If you say no one, do you have a dog? Does a dog love you? Get a dog, don't get a cat. Cats are independent. Dogs you leave for 2 minutes like you've been gone for 6 months. You're so excited. Yeah. Who do you love? Who loves you? What about that person do you love? What about you do they love? I have no clue. How does it feel when you're in love? With life, with a person? How many feel very different right now than a few moments ago? Raise your hand. And why? Why do you feel this way? Because whatever you focus on, you will feel, my friends. And if I want to give you a gift, the greatest gift I can give you is ask the right question. A question that will direct you And notice I didn't tell you anything for the last 4 or 5 minutes. All I did was ask you questions. But how does it feel? And guess what? Everyone has questions. All you got to do is get a little curious again. Get curious. Get back into a state of wonder. You'll have all the questions you've ever wanted. How many questions can kids ask? Too many. Right? Get back in that state. So let me ask one more question and answer it, and I'll wrap up with this. Many of you have said, how do I influence people when I'm speaking from the front of the room? I've heard several people come up and say, how do I do an effective speech? Well, that's a nice question. Let me offer you an answer. Because the question is not so much what you're going to say. When I get up to speak, this is why time fluctuates with me. Often I'll have a plan, but the plan disappears because I go into a state, but I know the outcome. And so I rotate, move, change to what the outcome is to make sure I get to that outcome. And so I've made enough deposits in my mental, emotional bank account that I have lots of good things I can say. Lots, on lots of different areas. But what I need to see is what's needed. So I go in with like overall what's needed, and then I find my way there, because along the way, I do have a format though that at least guides me. And the format will be helpful. I don't know what I'm gonna say, but I know the format of what I'm gonna say. And ironically enough, I'll make it another mixed metaphor. I'll use one you've already got. If I wanna score, produce the result, which for me, I don't get up to give a speech ever. The only time I get up to speak, if I'm gonna get up and speak in public, is for one purpose and one purpose only, to influence people to do something that makes the quality of their life and others better. That is my passion. I would be a crappy speaker speaking about wine. I just would be, because I don't know anything about wine and I'm not passionate about wine. But talking about something you're passionate about, anyone can be a great speaker about, because you don't have to think about what to say. It's in you. So I know what I'm about, but I do still have the intelligence to know there is a format if I'm going to do something effectively, which is to influence somebody. Anybody can get up and do a speech and get people to clap. The real question is, can you change the way somebody thinks? Can you shift what they feel? Can you get them to take some action? Can you get them to make a decision? Can you get them to move? To me, that's the criteria I'm looking for. So if you're looking for coaching on speaking, I'm the wrong guy, because I'm not a good speaker. In fact, I won Toastmasters gavel of greatest speaker of the decade, and I got up and I said, I don't deserve this, and I'm not feigning, like modesty here. I said, I can't get up and do a 10 or 30 minute talk like you guys. You're much more efficient and effective than I am, but I am not a speaker. I'm an influencer. I'm a communicator. And if you can get in your mind, don't have to be a speaker, all I gotta do is communicate what I believe in, and then do this, what I'm about to show you. I'll give you a format to think about. And we'll put it up on the screen, but I'll give you this. Imagine it's a mixed metaphor. I'm trying to get down the field to score a touchdown. Here, I'm just starting the game. Here is my touchdown. And the mixed metaphor is a funnel where I'm gonna get someone, where I'm gonna influence them more and more until we finally get them where we want them to go, a place that's gonna enhance their life. In your case, it's your product, your service, coming to work for your company, whatever. 40 yards of getting that touchdown, I call identification, identification. It really, what I'm doing in this stage is getting people, and myself and other people, to connect. And the way I do that is I want someone to say, me too, not so what. Me too, not so what. So if I get up here, excuse me, and I start out, and I get up to speak, let's say it's a seminar is a perfect example, and I get up to talk, and I say, well, let me tell you all the things that I've achieved in my life. I've done this, and I've accomplished that, and I've made this happen, I've done that, and I've done this, and I've done that, and I've done this, and I've done that, and I've done this. What happens in people's head after just a short period of time? What's the first thing they're gonna be saying? So what? So guess what? They're not in my funnel. They get in my funnel the minute I get them to say, me too, several times. So if you ever came to an event with me in a beginning portion, I'll say, look, I know you're here, I respect you, I'll think about it. It's different every time. I think about why people are there. I think about why I respect and love them. I think about what it is that is unique about my audience. I do my homework on my audience. And then when I go in there, I already have this affiliation, affection for them before they walk in. I don't just think of you as a group, I think of these different personalities that are here that I'm here to serve. So I'm in state. And then the first thing I do is identify and connect with them by talking usually about some screw up or some problem. Or I'll say, you're all sitting here and in the very beginning here, you might be wondering, what have I got myself into? I'll mind read. Or I'll say, you might be sitting there thinking, man, this guy's got big teeth, and you'll laugh and go, oh, he realizes he's a big dude with big teeth, Or I can remember when Diane Sawyer came to interview me when I was like 30 years old. And I had a lot of people that in the beginning, the media was all positive. I was this young, great guy. But if you don't change the story, the media will do it for you. Because they get bored telling the same story. So Madonna figured this out and keeps changing personalities for like 30 years. Because if she didn't do it, the media would do it to her, right? So bottom line is, I didn't understand this, and I finally got smart. And so Diane Sawyer sits down with me, and early in the conversation, I said to her, she said, so you're the most successful infomercials of all time. And I said, yeah, it's embarrassing, isn't it? And she looked at me. She goes, you think it's embarrassing? I said, it's embarrassing. I'm between the Floby moth and the spray-on hair. I mean, oh my God. I said, how I'm able to reach anybody is a miracle. And she goes, you think they're stupid too? I said, of course I do. I said, you think I'd like to be on infomercials? But I said, look, I wanted to reach the world and there was no platform for me. How would I do that? I'm not a preacher and I don't want to be. And I didn't want to go just, do books. So I had to find another way to reach people. And these silly infomercials have got me in front of millions and millions of people. So I said, they're a pain, but they also have opened the door. She goes, wow, that's great. So as soon as she got to see, he thinks it's stupid too, she and I bonded like that, identification. And then we bonded with 4 or 5 things. That was 40% of my influence of her. Was getting her to say, this guy's just like me. The person who comes and tries to impress everybody, it's not bad to have some things that are impressive also, but if you're too impressed with your own things, you're in trouble. Because people are going to say, so what? But if you can say, damn, I'm telling you this, and there's a phrase I use because I had to find a way to share it, but I said, I'm telling you this not because, I'm not trying to impress you, but it impresses me, and people laugh because they go, oh, he gets it. He gets it. What you can do in this area is I mind read. I'll be in an event I'll never forget, and these people are really pissed off and everything else, and I said, a lot of people here I know are probably thinking, what the hell is this white boy, it's an all African-American audience, what the hell is this white boy doing here lecturing us? I mean, they couldn't believe I'd say that. He probably never played basketball in his life. I said, you'd be wrong. I did something for them to go, I like this guy. There's something about him that's like me. He's gutsy or he's crazy or, well, he's just a real guy. This is the majority of what you gotta have to influence somebody if you're gonna influence a group of people. Me too, not so what. Now, if that's 40 yards, 10 more yards get you halfway there. You know what the 10 yards is in influencing? It's logic and reason. Logic and reason, the firewalk, I do that seminar with somebody, the logic and reason, the seminar's 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours, whatever the hell it really is. I don't know, I make it up in my head, it's probably more than what I think. But whatever number of hours, people are out of their mind at the end. But you know what? How much of that is the logic and reason how to walk the fire? 5 minutes, maybe I take 20 minutes to explain it, but it's 5 minutes, I can explain it to you in 5. How to do it, what to do. But see, I gotta influence you to do it. See, most of that is getting all the Me Too stuff so you can see, okay, it's not crazy. The logic and reason, how to do it, that's easy. Now I'm halfway there. Now I divide the rest of my talk into 2 parts. And that is the third section from the 50-yard line, 25 more yards in, you're almost there, you're 2/3 way across. This is called attack and confess. Attack and confess is this. If you're gonna influence somebody, the best way to do it, very simply is, be in a position where whatever objection someone's gonna have to what it is you're trying to influence them to do, you bring it up first. And you attack the problem, you attack the objection by confessing you've been guilty before. So for example, if I knew I was trying to influence somebody to, let's say, master time management in their life, I would say to them at this point, let me just tell you something, it's the most crazy thing in the world. Everybody knows that their time is the most valuable thing they have in their life, right? Everybody that I know wishes they had more time and knows that's not possible. Everybody you know has more to do than they have time for. Everybody knows that they need to get much better at managing their time. But when you try to offer them a tool on how to be able to manage their time or a seminar or a coaching session, what do you think they say? I don't have the time. Is that the most stupid thing you've ever heard? I mean, think about this. What kind of idiot, and we've all done it at times. I've done this. I've told myself, I don't have the time. I've told myself so much time. I've talked to myself so much about it. I don't have the time. The time I talked about it, I could have got it done. Who can relate to this here? Raise your hand and say aye. Do you agree with me on this, yes or no? Now, try to tell me you don't have time for this thing. You're dead. Because I attacked it. If you had said, Tony, I'd love to do it, but I don't have the time, and now I'm going after you, my attack and the objection will feel like I'm attacking you. But if I bring it up first, and I make how incredibly stupid it is before you say anything, and you have to agree that it's stupid, I even maybe get you initiate by a question to tell me how stupid it is, and I confess, so you don't feel bad about yourself, that I've done this too, but I'm not stupid anymore, any more than you are. Guess what? There's no way you can come back now and tell me I don't have the time. So that's what I do. If it's money, you deal with money the same way, right? Who here in their life didn't have the money for something, but something inside of you wouldn't settle, and you effing found the way. You just were relentless and you found the way. How many have done this before? Say aye. Who here has ever told yourself you didn't have the money, and you didn't find the money, and you look back on it later, you know damn well if you just given away that belief system that it wasn't there, you would have found the way. Who's done this before? Say aye. Is the money always there for something we're committed to, yes or no? Who here absolutely knows that's true? Raise your hand. Okay, then none of us can give that excuse anymore. I can't either. Because if I do, I know I'm lying, and I'm not a liar. It wouldn't be lying to say it's difficult. Wouldn't be lying to say I don't know how I'm gonna get the money. But to say I can't get the money is the biggest effing lie in the world, and what that does is what? What does it destroy? What does it destroy? Come on, guys, what does it destroy? Everything. Now try to tell me you don't have the money. So the secret is attack and confess. Now, if you just finish with that, it's not enough because that deals with the problem. But the last 24.9999 yards, right on inches from the goal, is if this is attack and confess, this is like the hell if you don't. You got to paint the picture of the hell of what's going to happen if we don't follow through. And the last 24.999 yards, almost 25 yards, is the solution. This is the heaven if you do. This is if you follow through, if you make this thing happen, if you do the things we've talked about here, let me tell you what's going to happen. You know, I putzed around all this time, or I could come back to this one and I could say, I could tell you about John. John put this off. I met him, I told him all this. If he was here today, let me tell you what he would do. I confess for John. John would say to you, don't stop, don't hold up. Are you crazy? The one thing in your life that's valuable is time. Can you really afford to not implement this? Can you really afford to put this off? You know damn well you can't. And he did for 3 years. And he got divorced, and he did this, and he did that. And I tell you a real story, true story. And your brain's going, hell, hell, hell if I don't, hell if I don't, hell if I don't. But now I got to move into heaven if I do. But let me tell you what. Let me tell you about John who did do it. Or let me tell you what finally happened 3 years later when he finally did. He owned himself. He stopped making excuses. He looked the tiger in the eye. He stepped up and reclaimed everything inside of himself. He felt free again. He just decided, I'm not going to dabble in this crap. I'm going to master it. I'm going to do what's necessary, and it's not that difficult. And he just did one step a day, one step. Next day, another step. Next day, another step. 3 months later, let me tell you where he was. A year later, what time was. It's been 3 years. Can I tell you what his life's like now? Here's what his relationship's like. Here's what his finances are like. This is what his joy is like. This is where his life is today because he followed through. And then the last inches to go. If you do all this and you don't do the last piece, it's over. And that is, you got to ask for the action. Influence is about asking for the action. If you do everything else, but you don't say, okay, John, let's go and assume the sale. Or, okay, John, are you in or are you out? Or whatever your is, you must ask for action as the final component. If you don't ask for action, nothing's going to occur. If at any stage here, I step out of this sequence, I'm going to be in trouble. If I start at the very beginning trying to tell you the hell if you don't do this, are you going to listen to me? You just met me and I tell you, guess what? Your entire life's going down the hole if you don't do X, Y, and Z. Are you going to be influenced by me? Yes or no? Yes or no? No, we need 40 yards of connection, relationship, identification, me too, not so what. It's not just relationship. Here's why it really works. Logic is clean. I need enough reasons that if I don't do this, I got enough pain, and then enough solution and a call to action. This is how I would design your communication of your sales presentation. This is how I design your speech. This is how I design your interaction on something you're going to develop as a core story. And a core story, what do you want people to say in the very beginning? Me too. They need some logic and reason, they need some pain, and they need some pleasure, and they need a call to action. And every good core story has that if you listen to it. And it's in that sequence. Because if I said the dog bit Johnny versus Johnny bit the dog, same elements, but is it the same experience? Not if you're Johnny, right? So the sequence plays a role. Is this helpful? So you gotta always say, I'm gonna go communicate a message. First, I gotta connect sincerely. I gotta be able to have people say, me too, not so what? What do we have in common? What can I show where I've screwed up and where I've done well, but how do I get people to identify with me and how do I identify with them? What's the logic and reason? What's the story I'm telling that's sincere and real, but it attacks the problem, it attacks the objection, it attacks the limitation, it attacks the restraint before they bring it up. If you wait till they bring it up, now you're attacking them. How do I attack it? Confess I've been guilty or sincerely confess for someone else. Always be accurate, don't BS. Then I paint the solution and then I call for action, okay? So how many have seen my TED Talk? Okay, so I did this talk. This man, I go to meet him and I didn't want to come for an 18-minute talk, but I came because some friends said, please come do this. So I'm doing it as a gift. And I go up and he's going to meet him. I said, I understand that, you own TED now. And he says, yes, oh, you're Tony Robbins. This is how our relationship started with Chris. I said, yes. He goes, oh, you're that motivator? I said, yes, actually I am, but that's not how I look at myself. I said, you could call me that. I said, actually, I'm more of a coach, and if I inspire people as a part of that, that's nice, but that's not the essence. I'm more a strategist. But he wasn't listening, so I just shut up. I was wasting my breath. He decided who I was. So I said, listen, I'm just really grateful to be here, and I'm looking forward to doing a good job for you. He says, make sure you don't do that jumping thing with people. I said, okay, great. Don't change their physiology too. Great. 18 minutes, don't change their physiology. Okay, great. And then he's how he introduced me. They had somebody on right before, and the energy in the room was through the floor because the person was talking about something complex, and it was difficult. It wasn't a bad speaker, just you don't teach string theory in 18 minutes. It was something like that. And he gets up and he goes, well, and the energy was really there. He goes, well, now we have Mr. Motivator, Anthony Robbins. That's how he introduced me. We'll see what he can do now, won't we? Right? Right? That's my introduction. And then he wanted to say, he had a very publicized divorce years ago. I've been married for 10 years since that time, right? And my divorce was not a negative thing. He's highly publicized. I've never seen any place. He must have done some research on the internet. That was my introduction. Here he is, Tony Robbins. So what do? Part of me is pissed off, wanting to say, what the F are you talking about? And I came here to give a gift. I'm here to try to serve, and this is how you're going to introduce me? But, people get their little things. Chris and I are really good friends now. But, he had his impression, right? So, I got up and I made some joke about, first thing I said, wow, you must do really good research because I didn't see any publicity of my divorce, but I guess, you've done some homework on that, right? And I just kind of acknowledged it, is all I did. I said, but I will tell you my former spouse is very happy. And by the way, you won't see that in a TED Talk because they cut the introduction, all those pieces, because it would have been embarrassing. It was terrible the way it was introduced. But then I got up and I said, listen, I got 18 minutes. Can I just tell you something? The shortest seminar I do is 50 hours, 50. And her eyes got this big. And I said, I'll tell you why. I'm not into just inspiring people and then they go back down. I am not Mr. Motivator. I am not the guy that says, go to your garden and say, there's no weeds, there's no weeds, there's no weeds. I'm here to show you what the weed is so you and I can be smart and figure out what to do and take it out. I'm into something that's a practical solution. What are people starting to say in the audience? Me too. I'm not some big pumped up motivator like this guy. He's not that either. Maybe he's not like that. I said, by the way, in 18 minutes, there's no way in hell I'm going to do those for you. So I said, all of you are leaders. I came here to serve. I didn't come here for money. I didn't come here for fame and fortune. I have a little bit of that, fortunately, in my life, and I kind of teased. I said, at least my teeth, and I made fun of myself or something. And then I just said, look, You're all welcome to come to one of my events, and I've also got some tapes here. I'm going to give them to all of you because I know you will influence other people. And I was just totally sincere, and I tried to give, and they got I was here to give and not to take, and it changed the identification immediately. And people started going, still wasn't there. Then how did I do it? I went, okay, I only got a few minutes. I got to grab them, so I got to bring everybody together so everybody connects. And I said, it's the first time I ever did it, who here has ever failed before? I did it spontaneously. I had no plan. I didn't have my little triangle out. I had a different triangle. The triangle changes once I stand in the room, but I know the overall feel. And so nobody raised their hand. That's not working too well. But I don't give up. Just like these are pig-headed discipline would be the word that Chet would use for it. For me, it's relentlessness. It's passion. And I asked the question again. I said, thanks for your full participation. And a little chat. Who here has ever failed? I keep going until I get everybody in their hand. So from then on, by the way, where did I end? I did logic and reason. In my attack and confess, I told the story about me at 9/11 and with people. And in the middle of the story, right when the solution was there, my time was up. And they had been taking people, they literally walk up to people as you're finishing at that 18 minutes, the President of the United States, and they interrupted him. So I looked down and everybody was in a trance from me telling the story, and even he had not realized I was over. And I was 2 minutes over, which to them would be like 20 years or 2 days, right? And so right at that moment, I looked at my watch. At the peak of the story, I'm telling a story about this man. It's 9/11. This man gets up and says to this woman whose husband just died in the tower, I'd like to cry for you. I'd like to feel sorry for you. But frankly, I'm a Muslim, so I have to say to you, it's retribution. It was on the day of 9/11. And the room's like, and I said, and I had to intervene right then and there. And then I looked down and I went, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I said, I'm 3 minutes over my time. I do not want to be disrespectful. I'm so sorry. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. And I walked off in the middle of the story, right? And what do you think happened? People were like, oh! People started laughing, screaming. And so he had to invite me back. Okay, I'm sorry. And so I finished with the solution very respectfully in the next 4 or 5 minutes, right? And I had the longest TED Talk they've ever had in history, but people were very happy. And at the end, my call to action, which is why I really went there, was study the internal map. Become a student of the internal web, the thing that connects you. Don't just think of the external web. What influences human beings, you must master. If you can become a master of influence, and you can influence yourself, if you can understand what's really driving other people, if you can get inside their heads, if you can understand their blueprint of life, and find a way to meet their needs, you cannot just meet your own needs, you can change the world. And people got it. And I left, and I'm going to do the same thing right now because I've gone way over my time. God bless you. Thank you very much.